Welcome to Uncaged, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. I'm really excited to be speaking to our guest today. We have Pedro Rodriguez on the show. Hi, Pedro.
Hello.
Hello. Pedro has the greatest title, Vice President of Business Growth, Digital Marketing and Transformation. Before the show, I said to Pedro that as far as I can see, he's getting to work on all of the coolest things that you could possibly be working on right now. But before we get into what Pedro is working on at Horizon Media, tell us a little bit about your background, Pedro, and what you've been working on throughout your career.
Yeah, well, thanks again for having me. We're going to go way back. So I'm actually from the Caribbean. I'm from the Dominican Republic, and I emigrated when I was around 4 or 5 years old. And for me, the introduction to MTV, kind of just TV 24/7 was something that didn't really exist where I was from. So that was a great introduction to just media in general in the US. And as I grew up, I always thought I wanted to do something in entertainment and or media. But family, trumps everything. So I I pursued a career in law for several years, which wasn't really like my cup of tea, let's say. I definitely needed to be in a much more creative place. So I migrated and went to the University of Miami for comm studies, and that was around 2007. So the first earmark for my change is actually the Great Recession. That was quite quite a time, right? So I was working at Ocean Drive, which is now part of Niche Media Holdings, and it was a lot of publishing, entertainment, events, while I was also pursuing my degree. And it gave me a little bit of, enough of a taste of what that lifestyle entailed. And I decided that I wanted to do something a little different.
Yeah.
So I came back up to New York, and I started working in corporate PR. I was fortunate enough to get a role immediately upon arriving, and started doing work for the Wharton School of Business, American Express, and American Express Open. And that was really when social media was like starting to take over in terms of what a lot of brand marketing and extensions looked like. So that was the beginning of the partnership with Amex and Twitter, Foursquare, et cetera, which gave me kind of a little taste of what happens when you do B2B mixed with MarTech, et cetera. So I got really stoked and followed that path along. I started working with Cohn & Wolfe, so more, again, HSBC and those types of clients. But then little by little, I started to get more into the back end. Around that time, Time Inc., now Meredith, now Dotdash, reached out for a role, and I joined as integrated marketing director for one of the brands. And that kind of like put everything that I loved, followed, and really like was passionate about together before I joined Horizon Media. And that's kind of the quick version to get to where I am today.
Well, I love it. I'm wondering about the legal thing at some point. A lot of people that ended up, I think they were battling between going into a creative profession or an innovation profession. Perhaps their parents pushed them into law. I was also pushed into law. I have somewhere, I'll send it to you, Pedro. I have a series of letters that I sent to the law school that I got into, deferring my acceptance for about 4 years, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And I'm happy I didn't become a lawyer, but even though we need lawyers desperately, I know they're important, but I would not have been a good one. So Pedro, I love Horizon Media. I think it's really one of the most innovative groups, and I love the independent streak that it has as a business. And most recently, I know that you guys have launched things like Night Market and all these incredible businesses. So tell me a little bit about what's the latest at Horizon Media in the area of digital marketing and transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I think, the pandemic had us take a little step back to think about both things that we wanted to launch and things that were needed in the marketplace. So night market, as you mentioned, being one of the core ones, the pandemic really changed the US shopping behavior toward digital and e-com specifically. So we were at the right moment with the right product and service. So that's been hugely successful for us. And then throughout the year, what we've been looking toward is more, what does the NFT, Web 3.0, and other, tangential services look like for Horizon Media? So that's the project that we're currently diving into, because most of this past year has been spent, of course, getting clients to migrate in relation to investment strategies, right? So moving beyond tried and true partners, whether that's just Facebook and Amazon, et cetera, to diversify. And we saw just the other day how important it is to have a diversified investment strategy. So those are a couple of the hot button areas that we've been focused on.
That's great. So the diversification of digital resources and really the exploration of all of these new technologies and new media opportunities, and then how you kind of turn those into businesses really and offerings for your clients. I mean, things are changing so quickly, and you mentioned it yourself right now. This week we had this kickback on all of Facebook, and it's been a fascinating moment. How do you put everything into context? Where are we in this kind of digital journey right now? And where are the opportunities? Where are the challenges?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I constantly struggle between the business and, kind of where society or the marketplace is taking us. Because of my role, I focus primarily on strategy and development of clients. So from an investment strategy perspective, it's really what a client needs to service their business goals. But from a strategy perspective, it's what do you stand for as a brand, and how can we help you deliver on that across the media landscape? I think we're at a moment where, I think you mentioned a couple of items, including BLM, the pandemic, joblessness, food security issues, et cetera, have really taken center stage. And if you look at Gen Z specifically, I'm a millennial myself, so a good amount of us as well. And then successively from there, you're seeing people care much more about where brands are spending their money, how they're promoting themselves, what they're supporting outside of the day-to-day business. And those types of consumer-led efforts are fantastic and impactful. Previously, when you would present something to a brand and maybe it was just outside of where they felt comfortable, it was hard to really dive into the conversation and why it was important. And now their consumers are asking for it across social, et cetera. So it makes it a much more bountiful conversation, which for me is really exciting.
That's really interesting. So in some ways, an optimal solution now is you're expected to embrace some of the challenges we're seeing in broader society and broader culture and weave in elements of that more directly into the solution, which certainly offers a range of innovation opportunities for companies like Horizon to try to figure out those things. And certainly I would say COVID presented that moment where a lot of people were rethinking media, communications, advertising, and marketing. But tell me a little bit about your journey over the last 18 months during this pandemic, and what have been the big challenges, and where have you found shoots of opportunity?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the pandemic was a moment that really elevated certain aspects of my personal professional life. So going into an office and being focused on work day in and day out, we were talking about this just before, consumes you. And I'm personally an introverted extrovert. So I need large amounts of time to recoup before I'm on.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really get a lot of that before the pandemic. So the first several months, I really was doing a lot of like self-reflection and trying to understand where things were shaking out. I certainly knew that it would be longer than the 2 weeks that New York was originally told that we were going to close down for. So, mentally, I was preparing myself for a long haul type of situation. And it took several months before, from a business perspective, we felt comfortable. We were really fortunate in being able to retain our entire team and still support our clients as needed. And then that idea that there might be a better way of doing this in terms of being remote, allowing people the flexibility, not to deal with long commutes, being able to save here and there, but also reimagining what it meant to be engaged. I think I was essentially trained by boomers, and much of that was about engagement was about a physical presence in an environment and being able to see the work happen. And I think that, engagement, as has been shown over the past 19 months or so, is much more about whether someone is literally paying attention to what's going on, what they're bringing to the table, and actually showing up. And that goes beyond the professional. That also crosses into the personal. So the ability for people to spend time with loved ones, with families, being able to spend more time together. There's a realignment of a lot of the priorities that we had. And to me, that's been extremely beneficial. It's been showcased in my work product. I don't think I've been as impactful because it's been intentional over the past 19 months. Whereas before, spaghetti on a wall, how much can we do and see what sticks? And certainly I've been very appreciative of the opportunity to be able to be much more streamlined. And that's been something that I think, or I'm hoping we can carry over into our post-pandemic existence.
I really like that perspective. Are you and the team back in the office at Horizon, or how have things evolved there?
Yeah, so we're currently in a voluntary hybrid scenario. Okay. Based on New York law, there are some just elements that we have to be mindful of. And so until some of that is fully changed, we're remaining in this kind of hybrid scenario. And then I believe the intention is somewhere around 50% in office attendance. But,
right.
We've seen so many different changes and iterations over the last 19 months that, we don't know what we'll end up with. Certainly the marketplace is dictating different styles, right? Driven primarily by work from home and professional services, especially in tech, social media, et cetera. So, it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
Well, honestly, I think anyone who's actually been to the Horizon office in New York would be excited to get back to that office. I think that may still be the best office in New York City. So
Bill will be glad to hear that.
yeah. Well, it is beautiful. But I see it really in almost every business and that we talk to, this challenge of structuring it in a way where people feel comfortable if they want to come back, if they don't want to come back, that's also okay, and managing those elements and still making sure that ideas push forward and all of those fun realities of business. The interesting thing, though, is that I don't think there's a business that I know of yet that was less efficient during COVID. The argument, I think, of the old school kind of management style of command and control would have been, well, no one's working, they're not in the office. But in fact, actually, we found people were working and a lot got done, and it was a lot more. It was very efficient. So how do you make that case? So that'll be the interesting challenge.
No, I was just going to add, it's a real opportunity. We talk about transformation for clients all the time, whether it's a new revenue line or, just kind of existing product and service. And it's the same for our industry, right? How are we unlocking untapped potential? Because of the time that had been spent in commuting and in between meetings, et cetera, it's a really great moment to rethink what an office environment can offer to employees, therefore enticing them to actually be, networking and spending time with one another, but really looking toward what the future of work looks like, which is certainly more of a hybrid scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we're all moving into these new structures now, and it is still changing every day. But what are you seeing in the near term, in the near future, and perhaps a little bit down the road for the areas that Horizon Media is focusing on, and some of the things that you think are going to be big transformative discussions?
Yeah, so, well, ultimately, from a Horizon Media perspective, I think we've been well positioned for some time, given the fact that we've expanded services beyond core media planning activities. So when we strive to be our clients, most trusted partner, what that means is not only are we able to advise them in terms of strategies for their business, but then we can actually execute against a lot of those. And I think that bodes well for us and the future kind of products and services that we may go to market with, right? So for example, earlier we were chatting about Web 3.0, NFTs, and things of that nature that directly correlate to what brands in, for example, entertainment can offer to consumers to unlock completely new forms of either experiences, content, et cetera, and then also produce said content and experiences for our clients. For me, a lot of what's really exciting is in the commerce space, right? So like if we think about Asia as Delta, I think the closer we inch toward those types of social commerce experiences, social media shops, peer-to-peer type of commerce, those are things that for me are hugely exciting, because you lower the cookieless future fear by first-party data access and consent, but then you also enable an ecosystem that gives a consumer more of what they want, which is access to products and services whenever they want, wherever they want them. And I think the less we are about driving people to a specific location to do that last click and purchase, and the more we are about guiding, entertaining, and providing them moments of joy to get them to purchase those products and services, the better it'll be.
Right.
We will definitely see higher conversion, but also satisfaction amongst consumers and engagement amongst consumers.
Yeah, I really like the way you phrase that. It has always been, even in the digital marketing world, a goal to drive to a point. Strangely enough, it's for people in digital that love to talk about being nonlinear and broadly attributive in a very nonlinear way, the ultimate goal is that one point. And in fact, what you just said, which is that's the wrong way to think about it. And in fact, it's always going to be a multi-point, and you just need to embrace that and tether it back. I think that's a beautiful statement. And probably why people need to be working with Horizon Media and Night Market on these types of things. But
come on over.
Yeah. So Pedro, thank you so much for being on Uncaged today. If someone wanted to get in touch with you, where should they find you?
Yeah, so I am PL Rodriguez across social media, and LinkedIn, Pedro L. Rodriguez is always the best way to ping me.
Excellent. Well, we've been speaking with Pedro Rodriguez. He's the Vice President of Business Growth, Digital Marketing and Transformation at Horizon Media. He's responsible for strategic development of plans and programs for growing digital business at Horizon, including new products and services. I've decided Pedro's got the best job in marketing right now, as far as I can see. But it's been great to talk to him about all the things that he's seen during the pandemic, as well as where Horizon's going in offering new solutions for their customers. Pedro, thanks so much for being on Uncaged, and we look forward to having you back.
Excellent. It's a pleasure.
Cheers.